Hey, once again, you're welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers show on the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am your host, Will Massasak. Another exciting season of Steeler Fury podcast. You know, the world's longest running Steelers podcast, DJ, 2008. So however many years that is, that's a lot of years. That means I'm officially old. I don't think Jeremy was born. You were still in grade school, I think, when we started. So
Yeah.
anyway, pleased to be joined by my cohort that you'll recognize from every week, Jeremy Coleman down below. How are you, Jeremy?
Doing good. Doing good. Can't believe it's time for another draft season already.
I know. And joining us, a special guest tonight for a variety of reasons, is the TJ Wengert. TJ's with 32 Beat Writers is your org. And you also, I heard, are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So tell us your connection to Pittsburgh and the Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a Steelers fan by way of my dad, actually. And I here, let me double check and see if I can get you the exact date. But his pathway to becoming a Steelers fan is quite an interesting one. He was out in Las Vegas for, a trip of the boys, we'll say. And he had put down some money on a Steelers-Rams Monday night football game. And I believe it was, I'm going to try to find the exact year. But basically, he had put down money. He had a buddy say, hey, the Steelers are good. The Steelers are going to be able to cover. Go with the Steelers. So he's at this point in his life put down as much money he's ever put down on a bet. So he's riding hard with the Steelers. They go to McDonald's. He's, at this point, he's like crushing 2 Big Macs anytime he's there. So he's feeling good. Now he's got some food in his stomach. And the Rams run back the opening kickoff. And he takes that second Big Mac and he just spikes it on the ground. I think it was like it was a little before I was born. I want to say it was like 1996 or something like that. I'm struggling to find the year. But then, of course, the Steelers come back. They end up winning. Okay, final score 42-6. That opening kickoff was the only points that the Rams scored. I mean, this was 96. Like the Rams were solid, it's a solid organization. So ever since then, the Steelers have been, the jewel of my dad's eye, the apple in his eye, if you will. So then I started watching football as a kid, and I was like, yeah, I can get behind this squad. And it certainly helped. I was born in 97. So my formative years are, like the first Super Bowl I remember is Willie Parker taking it to the house against the Seahawks, Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones doing halftime. So from that point on, I was hooked, man.
Yeah, 1996, by the way. Jerome Bettis' return, or his first game against the Rams after they traded him.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at the box score, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah.
That's it, baby. Yeah, my Steelers journey is a little bit older. I born in 1963. So I actually remember when the Steelers were so bad, I can remember not knowing that they had a team in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Right?
That's incredible.
We were like, well, Dad, why don't we root for Baltimore? The Colts are pretty good. I like this
right.
Mike Curtis linebacker dude, and they're in the Super Bowl. He's like, well, there's a Pittsburgh team. And I was like, what? How could that be? And then Colts had a quarterback from Pittsburgh, Johnny Unitas. It was like,
right.
But then Franco came, and when Franco arrived, that's the thing that maybe if you're a young fan, you don't really understand. Yes, Chuck Knowles, turned the tide of the franchise around, and adding Joe Green and Terry Bradshaw were huge. But there was something about when Franco came, it changed the way the fans related to the team, and that whole thing about Steelers fandom and to the terrible towels to it being sort of the best fan base maybe in the world. That all happened because of Franco. So shout out to Franco.
I love that. Rest in peace to one of the best, man. One of the nicest guys. I never got the chance to meet him, but you just hear how people talk about Franco, not just the football player, but the man. And I can see why all that is true. 100%.
I did get to meet him, and actually he was just like you would expect, very unassuming and super nice guy. And as I always feel about almost every running back I've ever met from the NFL, huge hand, like the kind of hands that aren't just that his hands are big, but they're like, they feel like they could crush you, which I guess is how they get paid to hold on to the football. So
yeah, exactly.
That works. Well, Jeremy, since the last time we were here together, a lot of things happened. We were here, I think we talked just after the coaching change, but we wouldn't really talk after free agency. So this is the first catch up on those things. So why don't you kick us off with your thoughts about what the Steelers did or didn't do in free agency?
Yeah, I would say there were definitely some surprising moves. The trade for Michael Pittman, I was not expecting that. That definitely surprised me. The signing of Rico Dowdle, that's kind of another one that kind of surprised me, just because I felt like Jaylen Warren would continue to take on like the primary role. I know he split time with Kenneth Gainwell, and we weren't looking to probably get him back. I can't remember where he signed, but I know he signed for deal somewhere to prove that he's the playmaker.
Tampa for Gainwell.
Was a little bit surprised we didn't address offensive guard, given the fact that Isaac Seumalo left. Because right now, like, it's Spencer Anderson penciled in, and I want to take the eraser and just get that name out of there as quickly as possible. Personally, love the signing of Jamel Dean. I know he's a little older, but boy, that's like the kind of corner we've needed to pair with Joey Porter Jr. I know we've tried to pencil a few guys in there. It was Jalen Ramsey to start last year, and then he got moved to safety. Re-signed Asante Samuel Jr., who played okay in the limited snaps that he did play in Pittsburgh. So overall, I was surprised, I guess is the word I would use, because I didn't really want to give Michael Pittman Jr. a ton of money because he's kind of getting old and up there. Maybe not up there or whatever, but like he's not in his prime anymore. Let's put it that way. But at the end of the day, the contract's not all that bad. So it was nice to see them finally go get that second receiver. I will say that. Like, we were done with let's hope we can trade for someone and see if it works out. It was like, we've been doing that move for like 3 off seasons, and the third off season we were like, nope, the Colts have to get rid of this guy for money purposes anyway. We'll give him a contract that's not going to kill us. And it seems like we plugged up enough holes, but there's definitely some holes heading into the draft here that Pittsburgh needs to fill. So
yeah, the thing about the Pittman trade that I really like is it starts to open the window to what's the difference going to be with this new offensive staff and system compared to what we had before. Because the thing that everybody wants to talk about the Texas Coast offense is the receivers have to be versatile, be able to play all the positions, run all the routes, and have very precise timing and very consistent play. And I think Michael Pittman epitomizes that. I mean, of the guys who would be available ever to your team, he's right up near the top of the list of that. So the fact that he's a little older doesn't bother me as much. But I don't know, TJ, what's your thoughts on those things?
Yeah, to me, he's not like the sexiest name. Like, there's not even as much like, oh my gosh, wow factor as like the DK Metcalf trade the year before. I think DK just adds a little bit more of a name, and there's a little bit more superstardom that kind of comes with that. But Pittman to me was kind of like, to what you guys said, a refreshing change of pace, just how much receiver has been neglected versus like, and I wasn't head over heels with the McCarthy hire. To me, that was like as safe of an option that there was, and it kind of felt like ownership was waving a white
safe
flag.
Space here. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm trying not to go off the deep end, but I'm probably a Steelers fan.
Yeah,
but,
we were like,
but that being said, one of the things that made me excited about McCarthy being the new guy was he's going to invest in receivers, because that was his MO. Even in Dallas, when they had enough receivers, they were still looking to add a guy or two just in case. What if this guy is the next big thing, or what maybe it's just this specialized role. So to me, that was like, okay, cool. I didn't think that is truly the case. They're going to invest in receiver like they haven't since, I don't know, 2018. We went from the organization that like every day 2 receiver, if you were a Steeler, you were about to become a superstar. And then we became this team that like stopped drafting receivers and stopped prioritizing the position. So, and also it's one of those things where I think it was 3 years, $69 million. And it's one of those moves where it's like, oh, $23 million a year for Michael Pittman. Like, I don't, but then I kind of have to like reset. And I said the same thing about Odafe Owe. He gets $25 million a year, and you're like, oof, like Odafe Owe, $25 million a year. Like, okay, I mean, he's young, and there's definitely some upside, and he's gotten better. But then when you like reset and think about what are the top of the market guys getting 40 plus at both those positions? Okay, Michael Pittman for 23 a year, and for Commanders example, Owe for 25. Now that kind of feels into the right spot. So. Yeah. I think to me, it was kind of like, okay, cool. We're going to invest in receiver. I still think that receiver 3 spot is like such an interesting spot. I could see us drafting a guy at 21, but maybe this coaching staff, actually sees Roman Wilson as this like competent football player. And that's kind of like even a larger discussion point we could have about the Steelers. Like, I don't know how Roman Wilson, and then you kind of hit on it, Jeremy, with Rico Dowdle coming in, like now Caleb Johnson feels like he's kind of like an afterthought. Yeah. How have these 2 third-round picks who are seen as like a high floor prospects, NFL ready guys to contribute right away? How are these 2 guys doing nothing for us and like unable to see the field, I should say. So I thought the Dottle signing was kind of interesting, kind of piggybacking on some of the other stuff you guys talked about. I like the Pittman move. I like Jaquan Brisker 1 year. It's kind of a low risk move for a good football player when he's out there. It's just the concussion of it all. That's a little tricky. Dean plus Asante Samuel Jr. I feel good about one of those 2 guys being a starting corner on the outside, kind of a low risk move by having both those guys come in. And then, for offensive line, Brock Hoffman could start at left guard, but to me, like kind of leading us into the draft conversation, all of a sudden, like Vega Ioane, can he please make it to 21? Because like plug and play, he's your left guard. Don't have to think twice about it. That guy's starting for 5 years for you. So all of a sudden, left guard is definitely kind of one of those spots on the roster that sticks out like a sore thumb because you're, like you said, Alec Anderson. Can't have that. So overall, kind of my TLDR on what I thought about some of the offseason moves so far, and then the McCarthy hire, a little bit of my thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've not just us, but I mean, it seems like everybody's really broken down a lot more about what the McCarthy offense might be and how it might look different. But yeah. Patrick Graham's defense, I don't know either one of you really spent a lot of time watching them. I'm familiar with a little bit about his. He seems to, his reputation is that he gets a lot out of the talent that he has versus being very dependent upon talent to carry the scheme, which I like that in a coordinator. But it's definitely an interesting. It's an interesting hire because from the standpoint of doing this kind of exercise and trying to figure out what they might do in the draft or what their needs are. I don't know. I guess I'll throw it to you, Jeremy. How do you think this will look? The defense will look different, or will they just more or less still start with the same thing and slowly move into Patrick Graham style defense?
Well, first off, are you telling me you expected me to watch the Raiders last year? I mean, that was some brutal football last year.
Had you only known you had to watch them, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to watch them a lot more moving forward once Mendoza goes there. But anyway, I honestly think it's going to be a lot of the same initially, just because I feel like, yeah, he's done a lot more with a lot less. It'll be interesting to see where he comes into a defense that's stocked full of guys. I mean, shoot, we have 4 guys that can rush the passer right now. And, wow, I was about ready to say Woodley, and I don't know where that came from. Watt, Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, and even Jack Sawyer, played decent down the stretch. He's got a good group of athletic linebackers in Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen, which we thought he may be on the move, but doesn't sound like he's going anywhere at this point.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet. You never know. It could be one of those draft day things, but and then my name's escaping the other inside linebacker, Cole Holcomb. I know he's coming off injury, but he's always been kind of that nice all-around linebacker. So he's got a good front seven, and the fact that we added a lot to the secondary again with Dean signing Brisker. It'll be interesting because I feel like we were a lot deeper on defense going into this year than we were this past year. We had legitimate questions about what roles what roles some of these guys were going to play. Ramsey, was he going to stay at nickel, drop back more? This year, I feel wow, we went out and signed some guys. Our defense looks pretty solid, considering all the talent, even in the defensive line room with, didn't even talk about Derek Harmon, who ended up playing very well when he was on the field last year. Cameron Hayward still walking around with a walker, but still doing it really well. Benton had a decent year. I wouldn't say it was a great year.
Good at what he does.
Good, but not great. So there is more than enough talent to make the defense get back to get to some hard hitting, get after some guys. But until I see it out there, I'm still a little apprehensive of what really different we're going to see.
Yeah, well, my take is this is, picking up both of what you guys said about free agency just before we get into needs. But it's they do what they do every year, which is they try to solidify their roster so that before they go into the draft, they don't have any needs that are so desperate and so unfillable. If you absolutely need a number one corner, you're boxed yourself into a really bad place entering the draft because they would have to use about 5 of those picks to move up to get somebody, right? So that can plug and play this year. But I think the bigger takeaway for me is I'm not really sure. I think they have good depth, but I'm not really sure where are the superstar playmakers? Where are the playmakers in general on both sides of the football? So that to me is I would like to, I'm sort of always lean towards starting a draft early with solid players and building, go chalk early, big bodies, do something to for your trenches, unless you can get yourself access to a quarterback or some superstar player, of which maybe what are there 5 or 6 in this draft. So unless you're going to get one of those guys because of your draft position, it's you pretty much got to go solid. But at some point, you have to take some swings at guys that might not work out. Your the Hamilton, the safety that the Ravens took, right? It's like
Sure.
he could easily have flamed out because his, hey, he's a guy without a position. We don't know what he's going to do when he gets to the NFL, blah, blah, blah. But you took a swing and the guy's, like their best player and makes all their plays. So we don't really, it strikes me that we don't really have those guys. So that's sort of an issue for me. And then the fit, as you mentioned, TJ, I'll give you the next word here, but the fit of some of the guys that were here before that are under contracts or they were just draft picks or whatever, who don't seem to fit going forward. And I mean, my examples would be not just the two you mentioned for sure, Roman Wilson and Caleb Johnson, but I would put DK Metcalf in that category. I described earlier the kind of receiver that fits the Texas Coast offense, and DK Metcalf is not it, and he didn't play to that contract. You were talking about how much the new guy's getting paid. DK's getting 40, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is almost a bigger concern. Like they got all this money tied up in the guy that you're counting on to be a playmaker who doesn't really fit your offense. So you're going to have to run your offense and then try to do some stuff to get to DK without a quarterback. Like, nah,
Yeah. And that's why, honestly, I still don't rule out receiver at 21, depending on their thoughts on Roman Wilson. Depending, and again, it comes down to what the board is, but I really don't rule that out. I could just see a world where, McCarthy, maybe it's Pittman, DK, and whoever they take for a year, but next offseason could easily be like, hey, we're going to focus on trading DK. That's our top priority. But a similar discussion on the other side of the ball, right? Like you guys mentioned Keanu Benton and Patrick Graham, Keanu Benton's been kind of forced to play nose tackle, even though he's probably the guy that has least nose tackle-ish body of anybody in our defensive line, when it's Yaha Black, who college 3-tech, but now kind of has the body of an NFL nose. So it's is he going to be the guy? So I'm interested to see how the new coaching staff takes some of the existing pieces and just kind of moves them around, kind of just reshapes the picture we're already looking at. Versus it's also just a really good draft class to go if you need a nose tackle. There's a lot of those guys who can kind of fill that role. So is it Tim Keenan in the 4th round? And boom, there's our answer. And now Keanu Benton's gonna be freed up to play 3-tech. That would be interesting to me. So I'm interested to see just how they approach what you were saying. The existing pieces, are they long-term fits, or is this just a year band-aid? We're gonna kind of play with it because you're here, and then we're moving on to something else long-term. So all that is gonna be really interesting to see. But specifically Keanu Benton and nose, that's the one I'm looking at. Please stop forcing that man to play nose tackle. Let him be a 3-tech.
Well, I mean, I want to get more into this when we talk about needs, because I think defensive line is something that is hard to know exactly. There is a need. We know there's a need, but it's hard to know what fits what they want to do.
Right.
But what did that make me want to think of though? It's just the idea that you're adding. Oh no, okay, we're going to get to that. That's what it was. Okay. One more thing that is an issue that not very many people have talked about this offseason, but I feel like it's a sort of an underlying issue that's going to have to be addressed. Roderick Jones's surgery. So he had neck fusion surgery. Okay, so this is for a player that really struggled at right tackle, that struggled at times at left tackle, although you could say he looked better than he did when he was playing right tackle. But Jeremy, for instance, if you're the GM of this football team, in percentage, what's your confidence that Broderick Jones can be either your swing tackle that you can really count on, or a starter, or maybe even in the competition at left guard? How do you know he's not even finished with his rehab?
Well, yeah, they don't even know if he's even going to be available, start of camp. That's kind of the huge question. And don't get me wrong, Dylan Cook played phenomenal down the stretch. He was a revelation at left tackle until he had to play Houston. Then he looked lost like everyone else did when you play Houston. So yeah, I mean, he is the big wild card at this point. I think the Steelers have to decide on a 5th-year option here coming up soon as well. So I don't know. Right now I'd say I don't think you can count on him, because I think you've seen acceptable level of play. But this is a first round 14th overall pick. This is the guy that you drafted to be a franchise left tackle. He didn't look like that at right tackle. He looked okay at left tackle for a stretch, and then kind of regressed big time. There was a stretch of games where it was okay, Broderick Jones starting to play like we thought he could, and then it was back to right tackle. I mean, right now it's hard to say, but I mean, I think right now you have to hope that he can be available, but you have to think Dylan Cook is going to be your opening day one starter.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I, I would be okay with trying, planning on starting Dylan Cook as the starter. My issue is if Spencer Anderson or Broderick Jones can't go, I had to go look at the depth chart to be able to try to remember who the Steelers have that could be their swing tackle, and the answer is they don't really have one. That's
Yeah.
that's the answer. They have Jack Driscoll, who theoretically would be there, but it's like I think the last thing any of us really wants to see is Driscoll starting at tackle or being inserted into a game of tackle, especially if the quarterback is 42 years old and can't move. That's what I was going to say about the offensive line discussion was I give all of those guys a little grain of salt to their failures against Houston because they were chasing someone that was a statue more or less, and also was because of the pressure was folding like a table. So that's not good either. And we didn't. That's the one part of free agency we didn't talk about. So TJ, I'll give you the hot potato. What do you think happens, and how do you feel about it with quarterback?
Yeah. So let me hit on Broderick Jones real quick.
Yeah.
I think there's a 0% chance they pick up his fifth year option. I really don't see it happening. I think that decision is end of May. And by that point you will have had the draft, so you'll have a better idea of what they're thinking. But I just don't see it because even just the price point of what that fifth year option would be. Is Broderick Jones worth more than $10 million? And I know it's a market that's growing faster and faster. Dan Moore's making 20 plus million. I hear you. But Broderick Jones hasn't worked himself into a conversation to earn even $10 plus million a year. So I'd almost just rather go into the season and see what Dylan Cook could do. And could he be the Steelers' Alaric Jackson? Like Alaric Jackson's like a league average tackle, but for now he's on a new contract, it's a little different. But if you told me Dylan Cook was going to be league average at the price point we're getting him, I'll take that because that'll allow us to kind of address other big position needs. Yeah. But then to your point, quarterback, yeah. And I have a follow-up question I want you both to answer. Art Rooney II wants a decision from Rodgers before the draft. Do you think we actually get that? So I want to hear y'all's answer to that in just a minute. I will say no. I don't think Rodgers is going to have a decision by the time in 2 weeks. But I think with this offense, an extra receiver in the mix. Also, I think like better usage of our tight ends, right? Like we just got to stop having these spells where it's like, oh yeah, Pat Freiermuth plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I forgot about that. Like that's got to stop. I think there's a world where Rodgers can be fine. I don't know if we're ever going to I can't remember the last time the Steelers had like QB play that was like QB 16 or better. And actually, I do remember it was pre-elbow injury Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah. I don't know if Rodgers will be a top 16 quarterback next year, even with a new offense, an extra weapon in Michael Pittman Jr. But could he be solid enough to keep the offense afloat with a good defense? I think so. So it's kind of more of the same recipe as last year. But then my question would be, is it all in tandem with you took a guy at 21, is it Ty Simpson, and you're like developing him for the future? Or is it Will Howard? We think he's going to be the guy next year. I'm just curious to see, I think it'll be Rodgers who's back. I don't think he'll have that decision by the draft. But then, what's the long-term play? Is this like him leading into the Will Howard era? Are we drafting a guy? Because just from my lean and talking a little bit of draft here, I've been pretty positive. I think it's going to be Ty Simpson at 21. But if it's not Ty, I think it'll be Drew Aller with one of those 3 third-round picks. So I'm interested to see what's that line of succession. What is this team trying to do long-term? So I think it's going to be the Rodgers in the immediate. But the big question is really long term, what is this team trying to build towards? Who's their starter in 3 years? Is it Will Howard? Is it Drew Aller? Is it Ty Simpson? That's the question.
They seem to be completely not just disinterested, against the idea of thinking beyond any particular season they're in. And it could be,
that's for sure.
It could be that came from having a veteran head coach, because when you have a veteran head coach, they're just thinking about making a football team, right?
Right.
But it feels like this has been good teams figure out a succession plan, and it doesn't mean you have to use valuable resources that take away from your chances of winning now. You just have to be smart about how you do it. I go back all the way back to the 49ers adding Steve Young when they had Joe Montana. So they got Joe Montana and they bring in Steve Young, but it's not like they gave
rushed him in.
Yeah, it's not like they used a first round draft pick to draft the guy whilst you had Joe Montana. They just figured out, hey, this guy's available, and we think in our offense he's a good fit, and so on. My issue with taking Ty Simpson, or for that matter, Drew Aller, I think they each have their own version of flaws that I feel like they're the kind of flaws that make me not want to take them in the top 100.
Sure. Totally.
And it's just the difference of you're going to have to really bank on something dramatic changing. That's not an easy thing to change. For Ty Simpson, it's his ability to spin the football and throw tight spirals with an NFL ball. He had trouble with the college football throwing pretty passes, but as a former receiver, the difference between playing in precision offense in running routes and having the ball delivered in the right spot exactly that's easy to catch. So you don't have to you don't have to think about catching it. You're just part of the motion of running,
Right.
So that's Ty Simpson's thing. And Drew Allers is, more of both of them, have some issues with pressure, which is one of those things where I'd rather that they were better at dealing with pressure and worse at everything else. So this makes me sort of wonder if that's a really positive move. And then I look at next year's draft class, and I know, I don't know, maybe they promised Mike McCarthy they would get him a quarterback this year, but next year's draft class is, even if half of them don't come out and stay in school, there's 6 guys who are better than anybody in this class.
That's just what I was going to say. Like, to that point, like, even if you take out of the question, like, no first-year eligible guys, there's no Julian Sand next year. We're not going to have Lagway have any. Let's just take all those guys out of the discussion. You're still staring dead in the face, and I'm probably going to forget a guy. Arch Manning, Dante Moore, Lenore Sellos. Zoom in on this Zoom. That's right. Sam Levitt, Brennan Sorsby, and then who else? Who am I forgetting about? Indiana's Josh Hoover.
Josh Hoover, Drew Mestermaker. Like, by the end of the season, people are going to know who that kid is.
Boom. There's 7 guys right there. That's 7 guys and I think Metzemaker, CJ Carr, I got to show out for my Notre Dame fans. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so got to make sure I mention CJ Carr. But Metzemaker and Carr, they might be 28 guys. So even if that's the case, the other six are declaring next year. And this might be one of those weird years where, like, you don't often get Drake May QB3. Like, that is like a godsend of godsends right there. But next year's class could be one of those where it's like, yeah, sure, we could have had QB2 last year in Ty Simpson, but we're honestly kind of set on like QB4 next year is better than whoever QB2 is this year. So I'm interested to see. And then, frankly, your kind of point about like response to pressure, I wonder if that leads in the direction of Will Howard, because like that was one of the things that to me like said this guy could be a rock solid, steady backup, a career backup at the next level. So I think maybe they just go Will Howard. Let's see where this goes, and then come back to that decision again next year. But one other thing I just wanted to hit on, it is kind of funny. You mentioned like this roster and like they don't look beyond this year. I felt that way even just looking back at like ownership's quotes about hiring Mike McCarthy. And it made me kind of look back at the Mike Tomlin of it all. Because like he announced he was stepping away, and I looked at that as like, good PR, good for you. I wouldn't want to be fired. I stepped away.
Yeah.
But then like, Rooney comes out and he's like, well, I wanted to compete. I didn't want to reset the roster. I'm looking to stay competitive. So that's why we brought in Mike McCarthy. And it's like, oh, so yeah, maybe Tomlin actually did just say, I'm done with this. I'm leaving. And then the owner's looking at this like, well, how do we maintain this? Let me go hire another Mike who's a 10 win, a year kind of guy and can't get over the big games in the playoffs. So I don't know. Even hearing you say that just kind of makes me go back to Rooney. And I think this is kind of Rooney's process, man. So I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, it has a real Pittsburgh theme. You look at there, I bet there's no team in the NFL from ownership to the front office to the coaching staff, to players on the field for that matter, who have more of a hometown flavor than the Steelers do. And I feel like
I would agree.
That's the way NFL teams used to operate.
Right.
Like when Rooney was a kid, all your roster, that the depth of your roster and guys that you drafted late and whatever were all these guys from your region.
Right.
You actually had dibs on, collecting players from the played, with 100 miles or whatever. So it feels a little like they're making a Pittsburgh team.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So Jeremy, you want to weigh in on quarterback before we move into more specific on the needs?
I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of what TJ said. This is not the year I'd be looking to figure out who my quarterback of the future is. I mean, Mendoza's at the top, obviously, and then it's like, okay, there's like 3 or 4 guys that have some intrigue, but nothing I'm like definitively sold on. I have railed against Drew Aller for as long as I can remember because I'm a Big Ten guy, and I never thought he was worth all the hype that Penn State was putting into Drew Aller.
But he's big.
He's big, and he's got an arm.
Oh, yeah, great. So I've never been a fan of Drew Aller. Taylon Green has all these amazing physical attributes, but still needs some real refinement to be like a true NFL quarterback, unless you're going to literally bring in like Gus Roman and run the Lamar Jackson offense, in Pittsburgh, which based on the moves we've made, that's not happening. The Nussmeier kid from LSU, he's kind of an intriguing guy, more of a true point guard type deal. He's going to get the ball out where it needs to go.
Mhm.
Nothing physically overwhelming, but just a really good kind of football player that you can probably win with, but not because of.
I comped him to Ryan Fitzpatrick. What do you think of that?
Ooh, okay.
That's
Solid
pretty good.
spot starter, lives in the league as a pretty good backup.
Yeah, I can see
that's
that.
fair.
I'm a big Taylor Green fan. If we had a different situation, a different coaching staff, a different mentality, I would draft that guy in a minute because to me, like I said before about playmakers, take a shot. If you fail, you fail. If he dies, he dies. But if that guy works at all, he's Josh Allen. It's
Exactly.
why not give it a shot? Like, does he have a, whatever percentage chance you think he has of working it out is where you draft him. So 10% chance he's a, 7th round pick, a 50% chance he's a 3rd round pick, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think Mike McCarthy, for all his prowesses, developing quarterbacks, has never drafted and developed a quarterback ever. I mean, what was the guy that was the spot starter for the Colts is the only guy that he's ever really drafted and developed. I can't remember now. But he's kicked around the league as a spot starter kind of type.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's one thing if you bring in a quarterback it's totally ready to go, I'm sure he can figure out how to get something out of them in his offense. But to draft a guy that needs work, I'm not sure that's really his shtick at this stage of his coaching career. So
Well, and then this
right?
is supposed to be the year where we're going to try to go in all and win it with Rodgers. So like spending that 1st round pick or like a premium pick just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, let's go get some playmakers. We talked about not having like the electric pizzazz type playmakers. Let's go get some this year. Let's build up this roster for next year. We have all these picks this year. We have 12 picks this year, which I'm not sure we really need all 12. I would definitely look to move up to make sure we get like a few bona fide playmakers, especially at wide receiver if we're not going to go that route in round 1. Because looking at next year, we won't have the extra draft capital. We will only have 7 picks and no comp picks. I think they
might get one comp.
Yeah, just one though. So it's not like we can, create a real attractive package to move up with just next year's picks. We would really have to mortgage future draft picks, which is fine if you think there's a quarterback you are really sold on and you want to go get. But, there's a whole season of college football to be played. We have to see how these guys, develop or whatever. There's a few guys we didn't even mention. Jaden Maviava, John Mateer, like guys that were kind of hyped coming into this.
There's dudes, man. There's definitely
there are plenty of dudes.
We haven't even talked about everybody. I'm sure of it. Yeah. So, but there's another guy for sure.
Yeah, Mayava would have been a 2nd round pick at the latest this year. So, like next year, like you got to assume his growth. Yeah,
I would have had me personally. I would have had Trinidad Chambliss neck and neck for the first.
That's the other one I did.
He had come out.
Chambliss too. Yeah, great shout. Yeah, so he would have been clearing away QB3 for me this year, and then maybe push for 2.
I'm saying there's no doubt he's in the top 5 of those choices. We're going to talk about this more when we get to building our board, but TJ won't be with us. TJ. Just quickly, the one quarterback I think who will be available at a draft slot where it doesn't feel like you're wasting the pick, who could compete with Will Howard, who has kind of a fit for what Texas Coast offense is doing that almost nobody is talking about for some obvious reasons, is Joey Aguilar. I'm wondering what you think about his fit for this thing about what we know about what Mike McCarthy wants to do.
Yeah, Aguilar he was actually the last quarterback I watched just because I didn't know with this waiver, like, won't he be back in this class? That's actually a good shout. I am really curious to see where his draft status ends up. I do think this last year, Tennessee was probably the best year he's had in college. I thought it was a nice step forward. And also, like, to me, like UCLA to Tennessee, that's a step up in competition. Going from
App State.
Oh, sorry, App State.
Yeah,
but then was going to go to UCLA, and then the Mayava thing, or sorry,
Mayava
thing. They basically flipped, but he was going to go to UCLA. So, but that being said, yeah, App State up to Tennessee. Love to see that step up in competition and guys who survive that. He's got the arm and he's got the comfortability throwing vertical routes. That's the other thing is, I think sometimes you start to see some of these guys in college think, and I don't know if they're thinking about their draft status, but sometimes you see guys play with a little bit of a guard. They're like, well, I could take that shot, but. And maybe it's not draft status, but they're just worried about the worst thing that could possibly happen. It's a turnover. My coach is mad at me, whatever. Aguilar, man, like, I'm not saying he doesn't, give an F, but like he will sling it. And so I do wonder, and honestly, like he probably goes after the likes of Taylor Green, Cole Payton, Drew Aller, these draft and stash type of where are we in year 3 of these, rookie contracts. I could definitely see Aguilar being maybe someone They got Will Howard in the 6th round. I wouldn't be shocked if they took a similar swing of the bat.
Yeah.
Also, an older prospect too. I could see where like McCarthy is like, yeah, well, if there's a guy I like here, maybe it'd be one of the older guys. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
So again, and it really just comes down to if we get through the 3rd round and they haven't drafted a quarterback, that tells you everything they need to know about like where they think this class is at, and conversely, what they maybe think the 27 class looks like.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people that will also push the value of quarterbacks down in this draft because people are wise to that. They're like, okay, we could take this guy here, but compared to next year.
And to that point, right? Like the 2022 class, right? We take Pickett at 20, the next quarterback off the board is Ritter at 77. 57 slots later. I wonder, obviously Mendoza's going to go 1, but do we start to play that game? And maybe Mendoza falls to 34 to the Cardinals.
Well, now you're making me feel like they're going to take Ty Simpson. Damn you.
No, not bracing you for that. But whether it's Ty at 21 or Ty at 34 to Arizona, like that to me, like either one of those would make sense. How long do we wait for that 3rd quarterback? Does Nussmeier or whoever get pushed down the board because everyone's looking ahead to next year? And I will say, like, we do this every year. Oh, next year's class. But this time we mean it. Like seriously, take us serious this time when we say it. Next year's class is going to be ridiculous across the board. And I think the quarterbacks will at least be 5 to 6 deep with better options than this year. Sans at Mendoza.
Feels like it, yeah. Well, TJ, we somewhat limited time with you, so let me throw out to you talking about specific needs, because it's one thing to say, they need D-line, but I'm going to throw out to you two what I think are our Steelers' needs. Okay. And I want you to either disagree with me or rank them, if you think it's a legitimate need. So the first thing I would say is, yes, we have a lot of bodies at linebacker, but we don't really have a 3-down starter at linebacker that you can really trust. I think if, getting a linebacker who can get the green dot wrested away from Patrick Queen would be one of the best things that could happen for this team, especially in coverage, out of whatever resembles base whenever Patrick Queen is on the field. That's one. Second is, I do think that this worry about the tackle, like to me, the need is actually someone who could be a swing tackle, maybe has upside to become a starting tackle, but who can play guard at a good level, who would step in and play guard as a young player. So I like Ione. I mean, of course, that's, as you said, more or less plug and play at that position, but it doesn't solve the Patrick Jones thing. So I'm looking, if you do draft a guard that high, I think you still got to come back sometime soon and get someone you think can dress as your backup swing tackle, right? And then I would say I still think wide receiver is a big need, because I don't have a lot of faith in what DK Metcalf can do or Roman Wilson can do. So need another body there. Those to me would be the main things. There's some smaller ones. Fullback, Mike McCarthy's always had a fullback. Free safety. We have a lot of strong safety types. We don't really have a center fielder that can make plays.
Yeah.
So I'll throw it to you first, Jeremy. What do you feel? What do you think about those needs as I have outlined them?
Yeah, very interesting. I feel like if we're going to take a tackle that can potentially start, I think we're going to kind of miss out on some of the top guys, like Lomu and I'm forgetting the other Utah tackle's name.
Fano.
Thank you. I feel like we're going to kind of miss on like that elite tackle group, if we wanted to take a shot in like round 1 and say, yeah, we really aren't going to hitch a wagon to Broderick Jones or Dylan Cook at this point. I just feel like the middle rounds are kind of be the place to go with that. And honestly, there's not like a ton of guys that jump off the map to me as like true left tackle types this draft. There's a lot of guys that need like real pass work reps but before they could really step into that. Because I feel like there's a lot of right tackles in this draft. I don't know if there's a lot of left tackles.
Yeah. Although, you got a guy playing right tackle who could, just playing devil's advocate. You got a guy.
Yeah, true. You could always move.
He was a natural left tackle. He moved to right tackle, and
yeah, he actually did fairly well there too.
I think I read he played right tackle in high school and then college at left. So then now, of course, naturally at the NFL level, he's got to go back to the right side. We just got to keep flip flopping him. So now it would make sense. Let's go move back to left tackle.
Yeah. I'm all saying, let's put it this way. Maybe better to say, change my needs that I put out there to what you think the needs are, what, like, other than quarterback, which is the elephant in the room.
Sure. Right.
What are the biggest needs that you see? Does any of it overlap with what I said?
Yeah. And honestly, I love the receiver play there at 21. like specifically, like I look at Omar Cooper Jr. and as much as I've said I could see where McCarthy looks at Ty and can kind of squint and be like, there's Dak Prescott there. I think he could look at Omar Cooper Jr. and definitely see some CeeDee Lamb. Like that's my slot receiver. 3-way goes, yards after the catch for days. He's a willing blocker. That's my CD. And frankly, if I hear the number 21 pick for the first time since 2006 when we drafted St. Antonio Holmes, 2005 maybe, whatever it was. For the first time since then, we've drafted a first-round receiver, and it is Omar. I'm throwing my shirt off. I'm freaking running laps around this place. I'm pumped. Him or KC, I would be stoked because I think instant impact slot players, and KC and Omar, I think, could play Z. So if we do find ourselves...
Omar played a whole season. He played 2024 on the outside.
On the outside. So if we do get into a succession plan where like next offseason, hey, we're going to move on from this DK contract. It's going to be Pittman on the outside, Cooper Jr. or Casey as our Z. I think we're still in a good spot there, Sue. So either one of those two guys, that's kind of where like receiver to me is probably where I would start at 21, except that Vega Ioane's there. Like if Vega's there at 21, that might be the guy who's high enough on my board to kind of break that order. And I almost wonder hearing you talk about guard tackle needs, like I've been a little bit lower on Caden Proctor this entire process, but I ultimately he's going to be a guard for me. But I almost wonder if he is that kind of two birds, one stone approach. He's going to be our left guard. And if things go, catastrophically bad at left tackle, congratulations, buddy. You're going to learn to be our left tackle here in Pittsburgh. So I wonder if that's almost like the two birds, one stone approach. But I also think like, dude, like CJ Allen, I've been saying for a while now, like get rid of Patrick Queen. As soon as they signed him, you look at the guarantees in that contract and it's like basically a 1-year deal, but yet he still lives on this roster somehow. I've just never been a big Patrick Queen guy. So I don't think CJ Allen fixes it from the coverage standpoint, but I could see that team falling in love with a CJ Allen type. Or maybe even a Josiah Trotter in the second round. These guys who, like, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Like, that just is like Steelers football. And so, like, I could totally see them gravitating towards one of those two guys. Maybe it's Trotter in the second round. But also, like, one last thought, like, could it be receiver at 21? And then with those 3 third-round picks, do you trade up from 53? Because I've been seeing a lot of mocks lately with Lomu falling in the second round, and I wonder if they could talk themselves into like who's right there in that range. Kansas City's got pick 40. Like I wonder if like somewhere the Dolphins, the Saints are at 42. Maybe you talk to New Orleans and say, hey, slide back 11 spots. We'll throw you one of those thirds. Team that needs to overhaul a lot of that roster still. Maybe that could work. And then that gives us that left tackle. So I'm going to be really interested to see how they use these 12 picks because I'm with you, Jeremy. It won't be 12 players. They're going to have to maneuver and move up the board at some point. Is it in the first round? Is it in the second round? When do you want to do it?
There's enough players on this. Sorry. There's enough players on this roster to say, I don't need to fill 12 holes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you definitely could go with that approach because I'd be more on board with that. I'm always a fan of use every draft pick, take, BPA, make sure I get some studs at the right positions or whatever. But I'm with you. We really need to get some more impact receivers. We need to go get that thunder, if that's CJ Allen coming down to smack someone or Omar Cooper, coming in to play slot, he's my boy, obviously being an Indiana guy here and seeing him kind of take off. He's better than I ever thought he was going to be. Honestly, I thought he might've been a little overrated coming out of the Indianapolis area, but he has really developed, got to give credit to Kurt Signetti and crew getting him there. But
and dude, like he is such an easy player to love because he was at Indiana before Signetti. Like he sat through 2 years of like them winning 6 games those 2 years or whatever. Yeah. And then he got rewarded by staying loyal to the program. Like to me, he's like an easy sell for like if you're a coach, like why should I draft this guy? That's the character reason. That's why. So I love that.
And I was just will you come through in the clutch? Maybe, he made the biggest play. Other than that, no big deal,
Yeah.
But I like the once again, I'm really focused on, I have really tried to focus this year on wide receivers with inside outside capability because they keep saying that's Mike McCarthy himself said that's what they're looking for. So I feel like he is definitely one that fits in that category. And I encourage you to look at 2024 film because he did totally all that stuff that Elijah Surratt is doing on the outside. He was doing that.
Yeah. And I wonder if this team uses a deep linebacker class and deep safety class, just 2 other positions you guys noted, to their advantage. And like specifically like free safety, I could see a world where like, hey, kind of like what the Texans did with Kalen Bullock. I wonder if they look at Genesis Smith the same way, which I don't know where you guys have him in your safety rankings, but everyone, no matter where you have them, we all know the biggest flaw in his game is his tackling. Like that guy does not want to tackle if he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Right.
But I almost wonder if they look at this like we have 10 other guys on the field that are maniacs looking to fly to the football. If we have one guy, if this is our Kalen Bullock, we can live with that. And right now we don't have a free safety of the future. And this safety class, man, there's going to be a good safety or is it VJ Payne or, one of these guys going to be available in the 4th round and we're going to be staring a damn good football player, or it's 99 overall, that last pick in the 3rd round for us. Yeah. We're going to be staring a good safety or a linebacker in the face. And maybe it's Kyle Lewis. I'm like really curious to see if they use the depth of those positions to their advantage, because I think there's a premium value to be had at both those spots.
Yeah. So in terms of the overall needs though, TJ, what would you say? Do we miss something that's obvious?
No, I think that's it. I would say receiver, O-line. I think we could go into the season with Dylan Cook and Brock Hoffman. Now, granted, like brace for impact, that left side of the offensive line gives me worry too. But I would say receiver is top priority. I still think we need one more guy. And ultimately, this comes down to how they feel about Roman Wilson. I don't know what he had on Mike Tomlin, but he must have had some dirt on him somewhere. I don't know if he's got that on Mike McCarthy. But I would say receiver and then offensive line. And then I'm with y'all. I think we still need a nickel corner. Like I kind of look at Keontae Scott and I'm like, that man's a madman. That is a Pittsburgh Steelers, like Mike Hilton type of guy.
Not in the locker room. That would be the best locker room guy in the draft.
Oh, wow. They would love a dude like that. And then if you're telling me like another Indiana guy, like could we get a linebacker like Aiden Fisher in the 4th round? So that's also part of what's coming in my mind. Like I like going receiver early. Go get offensive line if you can in the 2nd round. And then with those 3rd and 4th round picks, let's go get those impact safeties that fell on the board because it's a deep class. Aiden Fisher, that type of a linebacker who just lives on a board because it's a good linebacker class. I wonder if that's ultimately their approach.
Could be.
And of course, that's all of, like you said earlier, negating the idea of like, what are we going to do at quarterback? It's easier to build out this roster and make you feel really good about it if you don't draft one. But then you're going to have people like me who are like, okay, so what are
we doing?
Yeah, exactly. Will Howard, okay.
But the thing is, like you just talk about what's going to be available to you at 99, and it sounds all well and good. Oh, well, they'll pick a quarterback at 99. We'll get Drew Aller or whatever. But if you think about what you're getting instead, it's going to be tough to swallow that, unless you really think that Drew Aller is just misunderstood and he's going to step in and be the quarterback of the future. But
or is it Cole Payton? And then you have a built-in argument of like he's a 1-year starter at FCS, so we need at least 2 years. Like I almost wonder if that's the cop-out. But then again, if we're calling it a cop-out, then they know it's a cop-out. So
getting back to fit, though, the thing is, I guess they paid a lot extra special attention to Cole Payton, and maybe that is a guy they like. Seems like it.
Yeah.
But once again, you're supposed to be delivering the football with consistent accuracy. And you talk about Cole Payton, who a lot of amazing things in his game. Sure. His fundamentals and technique throwing the football is absolutely a work in progress, to the point where, imagine him in a high repetition kind of offense. What will that do? How will that work? And I feel in a certain way that Drew Aller is the same way. It's like he is perfectly capable of making some precision throws in the intermediate and downfield, and then will just throw some of the worst balls you'll ever see in your life. So in a way, Taylor Green has better mechanics and better accuracy than those two guys. And he's considered a project, right?
Right.
So that's why I say I'd be wary of bringing anybody in who doesn't have that aspect of the game down, because I just don't see them getting especially if Rodgers comes. You're going to have another year where you don't really see too much of those backups, and you're counting on a team that's all focused on trying to win it all, developing them.
You can call this copium. I fully acknowledge it. If this sounds like copium, it's because it is. What I'll say about Aller and then Payton, I'll start with Payton. I agree with you. Like he's got a little bit of a Tebow-esque like wind up when you watch him at NDSU, and you're like, that's not going to play on Sundays. I thought it got a little cleaner at the Senior Bowl, but even then, like that first day of Senior Bowl practice, you could tell like, these throws aren't as open as they were at NDSU, where basically the scheme gets everyone pretty much wide open. And Bryce Lance is faster than everyone at this level of comp, so he's always open. But by day 2 and 3, I thought the processing speed was better. And then piggybacking on that, at the combine, that release looked even smoother. So I thought he made progress at the Senior Bowl in that regard with his mechanics, his footwork, and that windup. And I thought even more so once we got to the combine. So take that as copium that he's working on it. He's getting there. And then for Drew Aller, I will say, as much as I was excited about Andy Kotelnicki being their OC, just because I watched him at Kansas do so many great things with Jalen Daniels, I ultimately don't know if he was the OC hire for a, let's be honest, statue quarterback that is Drew Aller. Jalen Daniels, so much of his success there was based around the design running game and then creating open throws off of that. He didn't have that same success with Aller. So I could see it yourself. If you're Mike McCarthy, you might look at Drew Allar's tape and say, hey, that's not my scheme. That's not my offense. I'm going to have guys open, and he's got the arm to hit them. So, call it copium, but I wonder if those conversations are being had and being used as selling points for either one of those guys.
Jamie, I'm going to give you quickly the last word before we have to send DJ off.
Yeah, last word on quarterback or just in general?
I don't know. I'll give you both. I'll give you one first and then give him one.
Gotcha. One thing I would say, we were talking about taking a wide receiver maybe around one. It's starting to sound like Tyson may be falling down the board a little bit. Good player, but that hamstring is starting to get a little scary, just the fact that it hasn't gotten better. But I also thought that if we were going to pass on a wide receiver, trading up early into round 2 to get some of these like other studs that may not have like the first round grade or whatever, like a Chris Brazel from Tennessee. That kid is just wow. And then another guy that I know Will and I both like, Ted Hurst.
Yeah, I like Hurst.
That kid looks like George Pickens 2.0, just in movement skills. Not saying he's got the hands yet. Not saying he's got the hands yet. He did have like a few concentration drops or whatever that you didn't really see from Pickens at Georgia. But like there are a lot of interesting.
He didn't pick fights with half his opponents either, like Pickens did. So
yeah, true. But I think there's a lot of interesting round 2 receivers that can bring you just as much juice as the guys in round 1. Because while the round 1 guys like have the pedigree, Cardell Tate's been doing it here for 2 years. Tyson been doing it for 2 years. Mekhi Lemon, another guy who, kind of really screwed up his whole combine with the weird interviews and all that. It's like, how far do some of these receivers really fall? And do they have the concerns that Pittsburgh backs off and says, yeah, I don't know if we're going to do that in round 1.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would love Lemon. He's my receiver 1. And what I'll say about the combine is that's like, imagine doing a 7-day job interview where you had to get up, do medical checks, do media, then go on field. I've never been in that type of environment, and I don't know that I would handle it well. I need 8 hours of sleep guy. So sometimes I feel bad for these guys who, and now granted, it was a weird interview, so I'm not like totally excusing it. It's definitely odd, but I would love if he falls to 21. Oh my God, I'd probably break the table I'll be sitting at, pounding it so hard for it. Yeah. So
it'd be really hard to pass on Lemon at 21. Just because
and tell me he wouldn't be a CeeDee Lamb type for McCarthy.
Yeah,
but another name I wanted to mention,
slot receiver role too. Exactly. Like that's desperately what Pittsburgh needs, like an impact slot electric 100%. Type of guy. That's Lemon to a T. So
100%. And then you mentioned Brazel and Hurst. Those are my receivers 9 and 10. I'll throw one other guy, my receiver 8, Chris Bell. If the plan is to eventually move on from DK, you got a year to kind of play with it and just see where it goes. He needs to develop his route tree. So frankly, playing in the slot year 1 is probably the best thing for him. Just get him on a bunch of shallow cross drags and let that man be big and fast and run away from people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I think when you have, I just would like to try to avoid wide receivers. I love Chris Bell. Yeah. I would like to try to avoid wide receivers that have to be, you create offense for them.
Yeah, sure.
That's an issue. That's been an issue. That's really Roman Wilson's issue. Roman Wilson's issue. He needs to be with McDaniel or Shanahan or something where they're literally going to create stuff in their offense that just gives if he gets coverage, you motion him to get coverage against a linebacker, he's going to score a touchdown, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like we didn't put him in motion. We never schemed anything for him. And you saw it didn't kind of work out. I'm not really sure Mike McCarthy's offense is much better in that regard, right? It's a more like you fit into the system kind of a offense. But yeah, that would be my concern with someone as good as Chris Bell is, that he's
while the route tree is developing, you got to scheme him open.
He fits more of a either what they were doing previously with Arthur Smith or even earlier with Todd Haley or whatever, where it's just like, here's a guy who's going to win a one-on-one matchup, and we're just going to scheme. He's going to be one-on-one and he'll be open. So I don't know. We'll get there. It's been a good conversation. The one thing we didn't talk about, I realize too much, is my concern about the defensive front, which is we don't really know what they want to try to do.
Yeah.
And I just feel like the NFL, the concept of like, we're going to have these 2 5 techs who are really hard to find because you got to find these guys with length who can hold a point and, 2 gap or whatever and still get an occasional pass rush. Like Bruce Smith doesn't grow on trees. Yeah, right. There are not too many guys that can do that. Right. And then you have to have a nose tackle who may not help you that much when they pass the ball 50, 60% of the time on first down anyway. Right. because we live in this vacuum. We live for Pittsburgh Steelers team where they don't throw on first down, the easiest down to throw on.
But the rest of the league is modernized.
They refuse to do that, whereas everybody else is. So they trot out a defense that would stop them on first down, right?
Right.
So my take is I kind of think you have the starters for an even front look, and then you have a big body in Yaya to bring in. Maybe not elite, but it doesn't feel like this urgent need to add somebody to that mixture, because I feel like the ultimate place, like Cameron Hayward really these days is playing like a one tech, and Benton should be your three tech.
Yeah.
And, your first round draft pick from last year, I think, is a guy that can play to do what he's almost a Cam Hayward clone. He could do whatever.
Exactly. That's what I said.
He can, he can kick 5-1 and do any of that stuff and still get you some pass rush, right, on passing downs. So if you're going to add a big body, this will be the last thing to do. If you're going to add a big body, a defensive line, that we think of as a nose, it's got to be somebody that offers pass rush. Because if he doesn't, if he's useless, even collapsing the pocket on early downs where the NFL is throwing at a higher and higher rate every year, it's not going to work for me. So I'll give each one of you, Jeremy, I'll start with you. Give me a guy in this class of, not necessarily the deepest class in this regard, big body, sort of a 0-1 tech, but who's actually can give you some pass rush. It might be available to the Steelers.
Yeah, and I'll give some love to our other co-host who isn't on tonight, Corey Karbowski, who kind of turned me onto this name before the season started. Lee Hunter is a
there
dude.
It is.
Like if there was any nose tackle that we could walk out of this draft with, it'd be Lee Hunter for me, because he is this giant human being. He explodes off the line for a guy who is 6'4", pushing 320 plus, and he gets after it. Now, like, he may not be like the most agile guy, but I'm asking for a guy just to walk the guy back, maybe slip the guy, and make a difference. And like, that is the guy who, like, honestly, that's kind of been like my strategy, is like, go get an elite defensive lineman in round 1 and then trade up for that wide receiver in round 2. That's what I would love Pittsburgh to do this year. I don't know if they're going to do it, but yeah, if we could walk out of this draft with Lee Hunter, and I know there's like a varying opinion of where he's going to go. He ballooned up to the first round. Now is more like mid-second. It's like, I don't care where you get him. That guy's just a dude. And he would free Harmon up. He would free Benton up. He would free Hayward up. Like, all these guys go play like more like D end in a 3-4 front too, which is, they've kind of come out and said, yeah, we are a 3-4 team, blah, 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 blah. I don't buy that.
They still have TJ Watt, who doesn't really fit anything else.
Yeah, right.
Lee Hunter, like, that man, good God.
Yeah, I echo all those thoughts. He's my D tackle too, and he's only behind Peter Woods. And frankly, on the right day, I might sell myself in an argument that I'd rather take Lee Hunter than Peter Woods. And again, it comes down to the scheme, right? If we're talking Houston, I want to see what Peter Woods looks like being coached by Mika Ryans. I bet that guy could keep him motivated. But for Pittsburgh, maybe this is that, hey, we're at 53 in the second round. Let's go call the Saints or the Chiefs at 40, and let's see what the price is to move up. Because, right, this would be our Casey Hampton, and frankly, more than Casey Hampton, because Casey was an awesome run defender, but a little bit to be desired as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
And frankly, ESPN's Jordan Reed, his comp for Lee Hunter this entire cycle has been Kevin Williams. Like, the Williams, one half the Williams wall. And I mean, dude, if you were telling me we plugged Kevin Williams in the middle of our D-line with Keanu Benton, Yaha Black, and Cam Hayward and Derek Harmon and our edge rushers, oh my God. I mean, we already have one of the better front sevens in the league, but like, that would be the move that, like, okay, I think we have the best front seven in all of the NFL. So I'm with you in lockstride. Lee Hunter would be like a dream addition for that D-line to me.
Yeah. I'll give you a question mark and a sleeper. The question mark is Caleb Banks. If Caleb Banks comes to 21, are you like, yeah, foot injury, sure, we'll take you. But like, you guys sound like you might take Hunter over Banks. So I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah, he's my 6 DT. This entire cycle, he has been the guy that I'm like, I will let someone else play with that in the first round. 330 foot injuries, and then also, like, he's just inconsistent with his pad level. There's 10% of his plays look unbelievable. Like, he should be a lock for the top 10, where it's like, holy cow, that power, that explosiveness in a linear fashion, like, is unreal. And the pop in his hands, like, it's ridiculous. But then I think, like, the other 90% of the time he, like, plays too tall, and then he's also hurt a lot of the time. So now if he's there at 53, he's not really a nose tackle. So, like, we're still kind of wondering what that position would look like. But If they felt like, hey, at 53, when he's healthy, he's worth it, I could see where you sell yourself in that argument. But, like 330 pound guys, like it's like a 7-footer in the NBA that has knee injuries. Like typically once they start, they don't go anywhere. Or like anybody with back injuries. Once you have a back injury once, sorry, you're cooked. You're dealing with it the rest of your life.
On both, I'm with you 100% on both things. And that's sort of how I feel. Like I have him in red on my on the board for that very reason, because
I'm
to
just
me,
letting someone else do it.
You just have to know what you're getting into, eyes open. And here's the thing, Deanna Walker was our guy last year that we were on this podcast all in, and we picked him, early last year. And it's kind of like there are, big man, high pad level injury issues. But at some point, it's like when the guy is just like, when healthy, tearing up the best league that there is in college football, at some point you're like, everybody seems to say the medical stuff is not that big a deal. And he actually was playing with it. He played a whole year with it and still was fairly more productive than most of the guys in the SEC. So, but I think you're right. The foot injury, lower injury, that actually scares me more with a guy that size.
Yeah. And now if you told me we were getting Caleb Banks at 109 where the Bills got Deion Walker, I'd be like, yeah, sure. We got another
that's what I'm saying. Once it gets to a certain point, right.
Yeah,
the sleeper I was going to say is not really that much of a sleeper, but Chris McClellan from Missouri would be a guy.
Yeah, I like that.
And I feel like he's 332 or something. He's big. He plays like a smaller player. He's more active and more of a penetrator. So I'm not sure, like, once again, I'd like to see what Patrick Graham wants to do with the guys that he has. If he's going to play a front where he wants guys to, to one gap and penetrate, I think I'd rather have a nose tackle like that. Jeremy, what's your take on him?
I mean, I liked McClellan. I took him in our, drafted team exercise, I think, or either there or on the board for the KC when I was picking for Kansas City. But big, tall guy, excuse me, who moves a lot better than what you would think. He's got great short area quickness. Is he going to go like run someone down sideline to sideline? No, he's not. He's 6'7". He's not going to bend down and go chase down guys, but his explosion and short area quickness is what's really appealing, especially like you said, we're going to one gap. Boy, he would be a fun piece to put in the middle. Not to mention at 6'7", he's knocking down balls too, even if he doesn't get to the quarterback, as a pass rusher. So a lot to like there, and not to mention he's already in Pittsburgh Steelers colors. So,
I predict he's going to be maybe the 15th or 16th defensive tackle taken. So like when you put it in that context, it sounds like maybe a good value buy. I like value.
I like it. I like it as a good value add for sure. I like that name.
Speaking of value, TJ, tell us a little bit about where you are, where people can see your work and see you.
That is what we call a segue here in show business, folks. That was beautifully done.
You're the pro. I'm just here doing this thing since 2008.
Clearly, you're the pro. Now you led me in there perfectly. You can catch all my work over at 32 Beat Writers, our YouTube page, as well as 32beatwriters.com. My big board is pretty much finalized. I got a couple of things I'm going to have to tweak and whatnot. I'm going to try to just finalize the 150 by the end of this weekend. So by the end of this weekend, you'll have my updated 150. Lots of draft content still to come on the YouTube channel. I got to finalize my defensive position rankings and get that into video form. We have a couple more guest mock drafts to knock out before we get to, I guess, 2 weeks and 1 day away from the NFL draft. That makes me want to throw up a little bit. But nonetheless, still lots of draft content. And then I'm really excited. We've got some good guests lined up for post-draft. I sometimes am a little bad in the sense I get all these guests before the draft, and then the draft comes, and then the fun ends. But I've made it a mission for me this year to where, like, post-draft, we're going to have some other voices on and be able to add some interesting conversations as we look back at this class once it's all said and done. So, yeah, lots of stuff coming on the horizon here over at 32 Beat Writers.
Nice.
Awesome.
And what's your Twitter handle?
Twitter is it's just my name, at TJ Wengert. My last name is Wengert. That's where you can get my all my football and my movie takes. Those are typically the two things I'm tweeting about.
So. Movie takes. Nice.
What was your favorite movie this year that you saw?
So far this year in 26, I'll say Hail
let's
Mary.
talk about the last year.
Okay, for 2025, I'd say either one, Battle or Sinners. I know that's so boring and so chalky, but Project Hail Mary is really good out right now, so I recommend anybody to go check that out. So if anybody has any movie takes, I'd love to hear.
I'm in the movie business. If you want to do a movie show,
let's do it. Oh, dude, let's go. 100%. Let's go. I'm about to pull out my letterbox. You're about to get more than you asked for here.
Right on. Okay, well, thank you so much for being with us. Jeremy, you and I and Corey still have a lot of work ahead of us building the Steelers draft board. That'll be the next episode on the podcast. And then don't forget, this weekend, We're going to be in the epic mock draft, and next week we'll have our sort of hard knocks series on how it all went. So this is just the first day of the Steeler Fury pre-draft extravaganza series of episodes. Once again, thank you to Jeremy Coleman and to TJ Wengert from 32 Beat Writers being with us. And I am Will Masasek, also known as Accidental Zen, known as Bradshaw to Ben on the message boards. Happy to be with you. See you next time on the Steeler Fury Pittsburgh Steelers Show.
Steeler